Hi, my name is Nathan, and today we're going to do a full comic book review of Animal Castle, issues 1 through 5, the full story. Brought to you by RatedComics, where animals brutally run the kingdom into oppression. If you like the content we're throwing up, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the bell notification so to help RatedComics to make more comic book reviews and comic book content like this. Also, link in description if you wish to add any of the comic books to your comic book collection, support the art, support the industry, and also timestamps will be in description if you wish to go from issue to issue. But with all that being said, let's get to it. We begin this issue with the monologue where we get a view of this outside castle in the woods. A long time ago, humans built a castle that was turned into a farm. No one really knows why they left. Perhaps they abandoned it. Others justify the impromptu departure through a battle where men with long knives butchered the ones on the farms. So the humans are no longer here, and that's all that matters. So the animals thought with the humans gone, they imagined things could be better, but little did they know, it was just a lot of stuff that about to jump off. And perhaps they were not better off. We begin this issue with a hen on trial named Adelaide. She openly admitted to concealing an egg, her own egg, to prevent it to being collected for their beloved President Silvio, who we have not met. We see this hen convicting Adelaide in front of these dogs who are like the front runners or the enforcers, so to speak. You conceal the egg we all know that the fruits of your labor is supposed to be stashed at the central labor house. No one can let go of this crime, and you must be punished for your crime. On my command, dogs. And the dogs are just growling, ready to go. Bite! And they just demolish this hen Adelaide, and that is just when things are about to go south. Daisy reminds Miss B, the cat, remember this day. It is not the day that Adelaide died. It is the last day that we did nothing. Some time has come by. We see Miss B hauling stone because her husband passed away, so now she has to take his place to haul stone, and this stone is too heavy for her to move by herself. But she has to push through with it because this stone is meant to be built a tower for Silvio's concubine, and they have to do it by a certain amount of time. And you can just tell it's a savage world. Miss B is just a good-hearted cat. The dogs are just enforcers or mean. And we get a little taste of that when she's dragging the stone around. And this geese goes up to Miss B and is like, hey, you know what? Number one is furious. He promised Sylvia that we would lay the stones today, and you gotta get a move on it, girl. Oh, I'm so tired. Well, if you don't get a move on it, Sylvia's gonna be really upset. Well, then that means he'll finish this tower for us, right? And then when she just collapsed out of being fatigued and tired, a dog comes up to her like, oh no, tired, are we? Well, if you want to rest, I will put you away for a very long time. And Miss B's like, I'm sorry, I'm just a cat. We need your sleep. I don't want to hear it. Get up there and go put that stone in that tower. So when she gets to the tower, Miss B tells Ducko, like that's the duck's name, that, hey, it will not fit. It's got to be recut. No, Ducko's like, I've been a mason for years and I guarantee you that it fits. Miss B offers and we take it back for them to recut it. And one of the dogs like, negative. We made a promise and we have to fulfill it. That concubine for Silvio. So when they try to place the stone, clearly it won't fit. The stone collapsed, jeopardizes the duck, and the dog is like, screw that duck. We got plenty of ducks, but we only have one cat. Save yourself. So in a character-defining moment, Miss B jumps down, rescues Ducko, and the dog's like, what the heck are you doing? And the dog is not even gracious or appreciative at the fact that Miss B saved Ducko. Like, you have to fix this, and this is gonna come out of your pay. This is all your fault. And even when the Ducko tries to defend Miss B, like, hey, you know what kind of nerve do you got? Miss B's like, actually, I got nothing more to say. I'm just gonna go home. There's enough damage, so she doesn't get paid. And the way they get paid is through these buttons. And these buttons is what they use to get rations, food, which is at the distribution. So when Miss B gets home, when she sees Daisy putting her kids to sleep from in the beginning of this issue, the kids are tired. They're happy to see their mom. She's obviously a disciplinary with them. They're hungry. They want to go to bed. Do we have enough rations today? And Daisy has to keep a strong, positive attitude in front of her kids. But when her kids go to go get food, she tells Daisy, you know what? I don't think I have enough buttons today because of my mistake, so I'm sorry. I don't think I may not be able to pay tonight. Daisy was like, well, you know what? This plump old goose did some dieting and it did me good. So I have some buttons stashed up and you know what? I got you covered. I don't know how to thank you for that. Daisy's like, you know what? You can thank me by keeping your head up. It'll be all right. So at the place to where they get their rations, this hen from before in the beginning of the issue is like, fair citizens, we do not live in decent opulence. Your bowls have been filled, and because it's providing with the security the Republic guarantees, thanks to your efforts, we have a strong dog militia. There was a wolf attack last night, so even if sadness and hunger torments us, we remain victorious against the wolf attack, and Daisy ain't buying none of that. Miss B is like, you know, keep it easy, it's all good. The crowd sings and they sing and sing, and the duck goes up and says, hey, we sung all right, but now we're hungry. Oh yes, the hen continues his speech. Of course you're hungry. And the harvest was not good as we hoped. So we have to stand together so that the Republic can ensure the stores are sufficient, so everyone's rations will be reduced. And Daisy's not having like, F that, I have buttons, take my buttons, you gonna get my food. Why should we starve to death when you and your president band continuously, constantly stuff yourselves, fill with your bellies? And the dog's like, hey, you know what? Shut it, because I know a hen who tied to a stake for less than what you're doing out right now. So shut it. And then Daisy's not having it, so she starts a militia like, let's do it. Make an effort, get that food. And the dog's like, all right, distribution is canceled and pandemonium ensues, and all-out war goes out. I mean, we see a bull impaling a dog through the midsection there. That is pretty bad right there. It's graphic, animals going crazy. It's just like oppression, depression, and starvation at its best. And Miss B has nothing to do but just to protect her kids. And these dogs are out for blood now. You guys attacked us, we're gonna attack you guys, and you guys are gonna get it 10 times worse. Now, the ending of this book, which when you see what happens to Daisy at the end, and that was Mrs. B's meal ticket, not meal ticket, but Mrs. B's way of getting food for her kittens, because she didn't have the buttons to pay for that today because of what happened, even though it wasn't her fault, and she clearly made a wise suggestion, take the stone back. She has to pay for it because of this dictatorship and this tyranny. This book was an amazing read. I can see why it did what it did in sales, and I had to pick it up and read it for myself. Link in description, by the way, if you wish to purchase a copy of this book. Before we begin this review, if you like the content we're throwing in, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. It'll help support the channel, and it'll help Rated Comics to make more comic book reviews and comic book related content like this. We begin this issue where we left off in issue number 1. In issue number 1, where Daisy and the dogs and the goats and all them went crazy because the militia was rationing off their portions. Now we get an update of what went down. 2 ducks, 1 goose, 1 rabbit, 1 sheep, and 7 hens dead in the courtyard. That's from the fight in issue number 1 when the animals revolted against their king because they were rationalizing their food, their rations. So the dog is like, what do you want to do, Mr. President? And Silvio, the bull, is like, drink, let's drink. I don't know why I put that kind of accent on the bull. He probably doesn't even sound like that. And the dog is just like, wow, like really? You just want to drink after all that's done? And the bull's like, you have to see the bright side of things, Boris. All those dead animals, at least the ones that are presentable, mean that we can pay our barter exchange. We may only have to add 1 more sheep. Plus, we're probably short, so the timing of this is perfect. Boris, which he's the number 2 in command, is like, yes, Mr. President, but we should be able to honor our side or the next barter deal. So this one is taken care of, but the next one's, that's my concern. The castle needs to keep up its production, but since the revolt, some of the animals are less motivated now. And Sylvia's like, of course, there are always some bad apples. I will do a speech to remind them where their interests lie. I will take care of that. You are my number 2, Boris, so just do your part. So let me go out, let me make this speech and keep the people in line so we can keep production in line. This goat and this bull haul President Silvio. He just looks up all distinguished like, dun, 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 dun. Hear ye for President Silvio. He's about to make a speech. And you can tell he rules with power when he puts down his leg. Miss B and her cats are like, ooh, this guy's so powerful, so majestic. Animals, quadrupeds, and feather-furry friends, I share your sadness for the bloodshed of your brothers. This is a speech he's given to the animals in the crowd. Even that of traitors and criminals, even that bloodshed leaves a bitter taste, a taste that will be hard to forget. However, we must forget it. If the wolves get wind of the slightest weakness on our part, of the tiniest dissension, they will invade our castle, take over your harvest, and take over your brothers and children and family and slit your throats. Is that what you want? And the animals look in fear like, no, that is not what we want, President Silvio. And survival needs power. When it comes to survival, it is power and power alone that will save us and nothing else. Who will you count to risk their lives to protect you from the starving pack of wolves? Him? The duck? Her? The chicken? By the way, give me some barbecue dipping sauce for that chicken. I'm all game for it. Or maybe her. Joking aside, and definitely not the rabbit. You don't listen to the rabbit. Hey, come on now, it's the rabbit here. And that rabbit's name is not Little Caesar, Mr. Caesar. I'm thinking of pizza right now. Children, leave Mr. Caesar in peace. Come over here. So Mr. Caesar has this like down. I guess, I don't know what this is gonna play later. But you know what? The President Silvio continues to speak. It has made dogs and bulls stronger than other creatures. And that reason is for us to lead. And it's my duty to be firm and disciplined leader, but to have an open heart and to prove this, I'm part of all the animals who died, because it's for the barter exchange, but they don't know that, just not letting the left hand show what the right hand is doing. And we're gonna give him a dignified burial, but we still have to condemn the evil leader of this attempted coup. And that leader is Sheep, the Sheep Bulo. Huh? Bah! I wasn't even there, I was just grazing. So now they put the sheep as a message, even though it wasn't the sheep, it was Daisy the geese, but she had her point across. So President Silvio is just exerting his power to flex. For you, Sheep Bulo, you get the steak. And what that steak is, you go down there, and remember what happened to that chicken, Miss Adelaide, I believe it was, in issue number 1? That's exactly what's gonna happen to Bulo the sheep. So now, in fear, they chant President Silvio's name. He, the President Silvio, the one we need. He, the President Silvio, the strongest of the animals. He. I don't know if it goes like that, but I'm just putting my own little twist to it. So back at Mrs. B home, she's having a discussion with her children. The children are like, who's gonna look after us when you go to work? We can't take care of ourselves, but can you just stay with us, Mom? I really would like to, kids, but your father's no longer with us, so I can't stay home with you. So I have to go out and pay for your rations so we can eat. The rations are the buttons that they get paid in so they can buy food and convert that into currency. They get a knock on the door. It's, I want to call him Little Caesar, but it's not Little Caesar. It's Mr. Caesar. Mr. Caesar comes in, you know, all chimey, all perky. And Miss B is like, dude, your timing is not perfect. Wrong and wrong, my princess. My timing is perfect. And if I'm going to stay here and take care of the kids, I need this place to be decorated, not look so much like an animal. Okay, that's funny. That's funny. I work nights. I love little ones. Leave me your kids. You go and collect your stones, build walls. In the meantime, we'll have some fun. What do you say, kids? The kids are like, yes, we want Mr. Caesar to babysit us. Or is it Little Caesar? Okay, I'll stop with the Little Caesar joke. So Miss B is like, all right, Mr. Caesar, it don't work like that. I don't know you. Well, then get to know me. Ask me questions. But I don't think it works like that. And as a parent, I get it because you're watching my kids here, you know? Well, then how does it work? What have you got? You got too many friends? Do you not want any more? Oh, no, says Miss B. Well, is this how you think animals who try to help you? Well, I guess I'm out of practice. And the kid's like, come on, Mom, what do you say? Let them stay. I can't pay you no more than 2 buttons, says Miss B. Mr. Caesar's like, I'll do it for 1 button. And Miss B tries to give them conditions. Okay, they need 2 4-hour naps. They need to lick themselves from head to toe and need to do their homework. They can't just play. They need to learn as well. He kicks her around. She's like, oh, what am I gonna do? Back in the castle, President C was getting jiggy with it with woo. Okay, wow. So he gets called, Mr. President, it's time to leave for the barter exchange. Okay, I'm coming. You interrupt me in the mid moment here, you know? What's the barter exchange? She says, none of your business. I'll be back tonight. Oh yeah, and who says I'll be here? Humor is not your most redeeming feature, Bella. So we know this guy is sensitive. He rules with power, but it's a sense of insecurity if you ask me. So when they go to the barter exchange, they meet up with this elder guy, and he looks at the wagon, and he sees there's carrots, turnip, wheat. Okay, everything is all good. But where's the rest of it at? So President Silvio unleashes the veil, and he's like, oh, there's the animals. And those are the animals that were mutilated, that he said he was going to give them a proper burial in the speech earlier. Once again, never let the left hand know what the right hand's actually doing. So now we see a rat. Very symbolic here. He goes into the wagon, and this dog sniffs the rat. And while he's sniffing the rat, the guy is telling Sylvia, all right, well, good, I can't complain, but it's not very fresh. Your carcasses are pretty damaged. What do you expect me to do with this? The best I could do is make ground meat. So even though he's kind of crapping on the barter exchange, he's still gonna fulfill his end of the deal. But he gives him a condition. You gotta add 25% to the product next time, or else you'll never see me again. So what does he do? What does he give him? He gives him liquor, dog kibble, just for him and the dog militia, but not for the kingdom himself. So he's working everyone into oppression just to keep his belly and his liquor full. Meanwhile, we see the rat inside. Keep pay attention to this rat. This rat is gonna play a part. So Miss B gets home, gets her kids, and she's upset that her kittens are, I guess, getting flirted on by these other kittens or whatnot. Get your paws off my kittens. And she's mad at Mr. Caesar. So she goes with the kids to admonish Mr. Caesar, but the beds are made, everything's clean, they're writing, their math exercises are done, they play, they lick themselves head to toe. And Miss B's like, I'm so sorry, I'm confused, I don't know how to apologize. Well, you can start by calling me Caesar. And there's a performing rat who came by this afternoon. He's giving us a show at the stable tonight. Would you like to come? I want you to come with me. So when he comes to the stable with Miss B, the rat makes an entrance. And what this show is about is the rat name is Azelard. He goes from farm to farm telling stories about people, but it's difficult to identify at first, but it's always about something. And what this story is, he uses like these statues with the silhouette to give it like a human feature playback, and he narrates a story. And this story is very important. Here we go. It's a story of a little man, a fakir, who fights against a king in his empire. The fakir lives in a huge country. One day, very powerful soldiers arrive from another country far away and force him and the people around him to work as slaves. And then this little man, instead of responding to the soldiers' attacks and beatings, he told his people to simply stop obeying their orders, but to never hurt others. So they're like, what is the point of this story? We want to see action. We want to see violence. But it turns out this story is pertaining to exactly what's going on with them right now, because he was in that wagon and he saw that Silvio is riding off the backs of others for his own personal pleasure, which is liquor and dog kibble. The king was not receiving any more bounty from his faraway land because the revolt stopped the flow. To try and control the instigators, he decides to send more soldiers to his generals there. But nothing more comes from him. So he sends more soldiers. Nothing more comes from him. Nevertheless, the king says bigger and bigger guns, and more soldiers. But not a bit of grain, not a square of cloth, not an ounce of gold comes in. And meanwhile, the human females and elderly join the revolt run by the fakir. So the king sends as big as guns, and he's wondering, what can I do to buy this? What can I do to stop it? Can I kill it? But no, that gun is not exactly a gun. It's a symbolism of what it can do to embarrass the gentleman, the king himself. And that is the truth. That is exposure. The king is a tyrant and the king must go. The crowd laughs and applauds and they think it's funny, but meanwhile, number 2 and number 1, the dogs from before, they're like, what? That rat bastard is making fun of us. And number 2's like, maybe, but don't do anything right now. It's neither the time nor the place. And then the dog, and number 1's like, forget it. Are you mocking us, old rat? You promised me this show would be entertaining, but all I saw was you mocking the president. What did you say? Says the rat. You're comparing President Silvio, who protects this farm and whose reputation everyone knows throughout the forest, with this violent and unjust king, this despot, this tyrant. What a horrible accusation you're making, number 1. And that's what you're telling me I'm saying, right? No, I don't want to say the king is the tyrant here in your show. The rat is like, oh, well then, you just said in front of the whole castle that the king was Silvio. Keep it up, wise guy, and I'll tear your paws off one by one. Okay, all right, let's get rid of any doubts that this dog, that my show was about his loyal King Silvio. So let's all sing this chant. So the dog tries to sing, and he's like, he gets caught on blast in the middle of it, so he has to recover himself. That's a nice save, Azelard. Flip the situation on him. I wasn't talking about your king, but are you saying I'm talking about your king? But they don't like to be embarrassed, and you can tell they're gonna find a way for payback. So the next day, Mrs. B shows up to work. Rise and shine, get to work and contribute to your happiness and the greatest pride, the Republic. Get to work and do what you gotta do. But also, in the meantime, in order to protect the weak and preserve the public virtue, all performances are forbidden from now on, thanks to President Silvio. That's a message to Azelard, but you know what? I know there's something more than that. He leaves, he goes to another town. Miss B realizes it because she sees something here. The other dogs follow, but something inside of her is telling her, I got to save this rat. So these dogs, number 1, number 2, confront him, and they're telling him, you ain't singing today. Have you forgotten your words, little one? Or is that you're too far away from your audience? Neither. But if you'd like to see the show again, you could come to my next farm. I would love to perform for you again. And the dog's like, I'm going to swallow you whole, filthy rat. I don't like your mouth. So he chomps on his leg. That's got to be painful for a little guy for such a big bite. But he fights back with that stick and shanks him in his eye. Stop! You know, they chase him down and during this pursuit, he is severely injured, so he has to climb up a tree or hide in that tree. We gotta bring the body back to President Silvio, but we cannot just take it that he's dead or swam up in the river and drowned. Well, and I think I can still smell him, says one of the dogs. I don't care what you think, Boris. I'm in too much pain right now with this thing in my eye. We're going back to Silvio. It's official. That damn rat is dead. But meanwhile, we see Miss B holding the rat in her mouth. So when she gets home to relieve Mr. Caesar catches Miss B in an odd situation with carrying Azelard in her mouth. Mr. Caesar's like, what are you doing, Miss B? Well, it's not what it looks like. He's injured. I'm just trying to help him. Well, you can't bring him here. Well, I can't keep him in my house either. Not with all the kittens. They'll sniff them out. And she's like, you're not the only one who has had friends eaten by the dogs. Let's get this rat somewhere safe. So they go up in the attic, and it's like this rotten plank in the attic where it's the only way that's safe. It's too narrow for the dogs to get in, so they can't sniff him out there. He'll be safe. Stay with him tonight. I'm going to see if I can find him something to eat, and I'll find a way to take care of your kittens. Just take care of him. So Miss B's like, I gotta take care of him because there's something in that show she saw that she felt she could do something about. Azelard wakes up and he's like, I will unfortunately never have enough buttons or carrots to show you how grateful I am for what you've done, but I can share one of the greatest treasures with you. Freedom, says Miss B. Ha! I'd love to join you, sir, but freedom has never put food on the table. In this castle, everyone lives with the threat of the dog militia, the stake, the dungeon. No animal is strong enough to stand up to Silvio. We have no chance against him. Au contraire. If you have more claws and teeth and strength, then you'll be just like him. Excuse me, says Miss B. Using your teeth and claws to obtain your freedom is like saying you hope to get a rose by planting seeds. Except I don't have any rose seeds, says Miss B. You have more than you think, says Azelard. They want you to believe that real power is physical. That's false. It comes from an unbreakable will. And Miss B's like, well, that's all good, sir, but my will doesn't mean much against 10 rows of teeth and a pair of horns. I'm not talking about that, Miss B. I'm talking about what I saw. It'd be a lot easier if you consider fighting hate with love, lies with truth, and violence by accepting some suffering. Bring injustice to light and put an end to fear. Those are the only two things that will release you from your prison. All others will condemn you, but your freedom will be released. The real question is not if you can beat them, but if you want to. And that's where we end this issue of Animal Castle, issue number 2. I thought this was a great read, very symbolic to how we deal with patriarchy and superiority and power. Never let the right hand know what the left hand is doing. It's just this deception with Silvio riding the backs off the other animals just so he can get his liquor and dog killed. I am looking forward to see how this issue progresses out. And link in description if you wish to add this comic book to your comic book collection. This is a fantastic read. We begin this issue with Miss B going about her daily routine and work for President Silvio while he brutally runs the kingdom into oppression. She repeats the words, bring injustice to light, put an end to fear a few times, and you get a visual of all the oppression going on in the kingdom. Keep in mind of the photo of Daisy, a remembrance of what happened to Daisy on issue number 1. The day comes to an end as Caesar's gathering his things, and we are reminded of the limited food supply in Mrs. B's house. You know, the control of rations, the work she's doing, and the little pay that she receives. Just a couple turnips and radishes in her house. I mean, you got to set up the desperation here, right? She thanks Caesar and hands him a present. He hopes it's a box of carrots. Miss B says, no, not a box of carrots, but freedom. Caesar drops her present, and it's like, don't play with my emotions like that. There is no such thing as freedom in this kingdom. She gets the idea from Azelard, the rat, in issue number 2. Caesar laughs at it like, the idea that a rat and a cat can free the animal republic? That's the funniest thing he's ever heard of. But eventually, he decides to give it a go because what harm can it do? Caesar ridicules Azelard's idea like, you don't think we've done this before? We've all thought of becoming free, but we cannot overrule them. Azelard reminds Caesar it's because you fought them in the wrong terrain. You try to fight strength with strength, you gotta fight it a different way. He gives it a couple examples. If you challenge a gazelle, I wouldn't chase her, but play chess. Caesar disagrees because how else can you overtake muscle and teeth? With violence. It seems rational at first, but Caesar hates Azelard's sayings that he doesn't understand him. There's no other way you can get what you want and how to get it aren't related. But that's what Azelard says. What you want and how to get it aren't necessarily related. And this is not necessarily kill him off with kindness either. So Azelard uses his lighter, for example. If you like my lighter, there are several ways you can get it. You can steal it, buy it, beg me for it, or become my friend and I will give it to you. In the end, do you really think it will be the same lighter? At this point, what do they have to lose? They're convinced that without Silvio and the dogs, they'll work less and have more food, but you know what? They'll never know this, so they gotta take a stand. Caesar agrees to help with their plan for 30 days and not a single day more. If another animal joins the cause, Caesar will eat his bow, tie, and he'll stick around for others to join. Otherwise, he gets to keep Azelard's lighter. It's a funny way for him to use it as a reminder that it's always better to go with your gut than your brain. So late at night, Miss B and Caesar get materials. Bucket, rope, string, and a hook. It doesn't seem like much, but you gotta admit this does keep the story moving in a very interesting way. This also shows an awesome character building moment where during their dialogue exchange, Caesar teaches Miss B how to lie if the dog militia were to question her. It highlights her character as an honest and doing good person. Caesar tells her how to lie by doing this. 1. Be outraged. Being calm doesn't come off as honest. 2. Admit something, a small something, nothing like a small lie to hide a big one. 3. Show that you're ashamed. Whoever's interrogating you will be ashamed as well. So let's say a dog accuses me of stealing yellow paint. I'll be like, okay, yes, I stole some carrots from the vegetable garden or two. I'm so ashamed of it. But the paint? Never, never. You hear me? That's how you do it. So that's how you lie. But guess what? Miss B couldn't do that. And I'm sure this has to play a part later in the issue or further issues down the line. Bright and early in the morning, before this cock can cock. Joking, I know it's crowing that roosters do. To his surprise, the animals have gathered before his cocking. I'm so sorry. Crowing. Number 1 and number 2, the dogs that are first and second command know all the animals are there because they saw a daisy. A daisy painting on the fence as memories from Daisy in issue number 1 when she took a stance which cost her her life. A remembrance, if you will. The animals initially believe it won't bring back great memories, but it'll bring someone to the stake for death for this. Who did this? Yells number 1. It's a disgrace to deface public property. As they ask each animal individually. Number 2 asks Miss B directly, where were you last night? Obviously, Miss B can't seem to take Caesar's lesson and to tell a lie as she mumbles for words. Number 1 tells number 2 to leave her alone as she's on my side. Besides, she's afraid of her own shadow. I personally believe it has to do with issue number 1 when they reference how valuable cats are to the worksite. Number 2 doesn't initially back down, but after number 1 says to do what he says, he does have authority over him. Number 2 concedes, but he's not pleased about it. He's freaking pissed. This panel clearly shows that the dogs dealt with something they have no idea how to deal with. Number 1 tells Caesar, you go and clean that filth up at the storehouse. Is that clear? So, well, Caesar has to clean it up. So number 2 asked number 1, I'm just curious, did you really think that one of the animals was going to say yes? Yes, it was me who did the painting. No. So why did you humiliate yourself by asking? Well, I'm the boss. Don't I have to ask? So we see this mule just walking and he sees this bucket and this stick. And it says to strike back at the bull, choose your stick. Mrs. B is around the corner watching him. So he gets the stick to see if it incites any kind of anger or inner motivation to overrule Silvio or to at least become part of the plan. Very subtle, very sneaky, but when he picks up the stick and he's not quite strong enough to knock over the bucket, Mrs. B is surprised and he puts his head down in defeat. So meanwhile, in this panel, night number 2, Caesar and Miss B go on and start painting more daisies around the courtyard. They go to sleep and you can tell they stayed up in the wee hours of the night doing so. Cock-a-doodle-doo, says the rooster, and Miss B wakes up. It's already morning time. Number 1 wakes up. Wait, what are you doing? Lay down. I guess his woman is telling him, lay down. Where are you going? You haven't even eaten your kibble. So he goes and all the animals are in place. And he smiles thinking that the animals got the message. There's no more daisies painting on that door. And they cleaned the daisy off the door. So number 2 is like, you better wipe that smile off your face or else they think you did it. Did what? Oh no, they doubled down on those daisies and he's freaking surprised by it. So the animals laugh at them. They're getting ridiculed and they don't know how to handle it, you know? So number 2 is like, okay, y'all really want to laugh? Then laugh all you want. Clean it off though. Food distribution is canceled this morning and no more distribution whatsoever until the walls are clean and shiny. Every minute spent on cleaning the walls will be double work in what you really do. You can start whenever you're like, I am in no hurry. So number 1, number 2 have a meeting with President Silvio. And Silvio wants to know who is responsible for this. They go back and forth. You know, they don't know who did it, but they know they're taking a big risk, whoever is doing this. And if we execute some random animals or dogs, models, exactly what they want, says dog number 2. They had a good laugh, but they're not laughing anymore. Look at them cleaning. They're done laughing. I think this is done. Number one's like, besides, we need to produce a lot now if we're going to make the next barter delivery. Motivated animals are more productive than angry ones. So they go back and forth how to go about it. And President Silvio agrees with number two when normally agrees with dog number one. Silvio's like, dog number two is right. The more important thing is not to lose our temper. Prepare my cart. I'm going to talk to him in the morning about this nonsense. And then when he gets to his cart, a big ass daisy is painted nearby as well. I want all your dogs on watch duty tonight. I'm going to talk in the morning to the animals, and if I see one daisy on the wall, just one, number one, you'll end up on the stake. So number one is clearly losing his touch. So when Miss B and Caesar go to the rooftop to paint more daisies for, their revolt, if you will, or at least the start of their revolution, the dog militia is out and they're deep in number and they're not going to let anything else happen. Caesar wants to initially quit because we had our fun. Now let's just go back to our normal lives. But Miss B has a plan and he doesn't want to be part of the plan. But part of the plan is he spends half the night picking up leaves for whatever God knows she has doing. So when Miss B goes back to Azelard, Azelard's like, what, you're not painting any more walls? And she's like, dude, it's hard to do that tonight. But I have an idea. I just need a hand from a rat who doesn't have vertigo. But meanwhile, outside, we see this goat overlooking Ing, and we're not sure of his true intentions here. So President Silvio delivers a speech. Castle animals. No one is president for life. If I have sacrificed myself for this difficult duty, it's because in all modesty, I believe I am the strongest of all of you. But if someone dares to challenge my authority, step into this ring and face me like a man, or face me like an animal, or face me like a dog, face me like a bull, whatever. He tries to diffuse this situation by challenging strength with whoever thinks is as strong as him. But remember, Azelard's goal is not to defeat them with strength. Is with ridicule. So meanwhile on the rooftop, Azelard takes the bags of leaves to the roof. And before he does the act, Silvio's like, who wants to challenge me? Where are you? You who wants to take my place, where are you? And the geese is like, there. So leaves fall down from the sky, painted with daisies, and the animals laugh. And President Silvio's like, enough! I forbid you to laugh, which pretty much sounds ridiculous. And the animals just continue in laughter. And number two is like, would you like me to have them sing your song and hymn until they tear their own throats out? I can send them off to work. And even President Silvio is like, I am not sure how to handle this. I'm being ridiculed in my own kingdom, but he's being pissed off as well. So as the animals walk off and they mock President Silvio for saying, who I forbid you to laugh, and everyone is kind of, coming together in a weird kind of way in this movement. This goat from before is like, tells Miss B, I have to say, it was surprising. There aren't a lot of animals agile enough to carry a sack of leaves up to a roof. Don't you agree? Good day to you, Miss B. And Miss B is like, I am not sure where this animal's allegiance lies. For all we know, he might be a mole. We don't know. But this is where it gets interesting here. That mule from before picks up the stick and is so angry and motivated that he hits the bucket, knocks it over, and the geese is like, hey, you have fun all by yourself without telling your friends? That's not so good. So now you can see that the community's coming together in this start of a revolution or whatnot, or trying to overtake President Silvio and his militia. So we end this issue with, make no mistake, it is not a triumph, not even a victory. It's just the first step on the road to freedom, with the only assurance being it was going to be long and paved with tears. And there was no way of knowing who would walk away, who would die, who would betray, or who would fight to the end. But that day, a cat, a rabbit, and a rat were able to quiet fear and raise hopes in the space of a moment. And for anyone like Miss B who knows this terrible animal castle, there's only one word to describe this great news: a miracle. And that's where we end issue number 3. I'm loving this series, and I think this is a gangster issue. I had fun reading this. It's definitely a book about hope and what one woman or what one cat is willing to do for the price of freedom. But I also love that even though she has kids or kittens, some parents would be like, I don't want to risk it and put my kids out of life. But at the same time, she wants to risk it and give her kids a better life. And how can you not love that? Link in description if you wish to add this comic book to your comic book collection. You will not regret it. It's a very fun read, very compelling read as well. We begin this issue with the monologue from Miss B that all the animals in the castle are not lumberjacks. All the animals are cutting wood from the trees for the whole castle to go into winter mode. It's cold and wood will be needed for the fire to keep them warm. President Silvio and his dog militia continue to make demands from the other animals for the storehouse and force the animals to build the watchtower while the animals are malnourished with meager winter crops, fennel, chard, and other stuff. In addition to all the work they already do, each animal has to spend an additional hour at the end of the day helping out with wood cutting and gathering. That hour is referred to their free time. So the animals are not compensated with buttons. That's pretty messed up. Do this work for little pay and do this other work for no pay. Mrs. B steps on a piece of wood that gets stuck in her paw. She screams in pain and denies any setback to dog number 1 when he asks her about it. No problems at all, and all is good, says Mrs. B. The dog reminds her in a sinister way that she has to keep working because it will be sad if her mother could provide for her kittens. Many of those who don't fulfill their wood duty can't buy any wood to stay warm. She walks away as the blood from her paws stain the snow. In this panel here, the animals wait in the blistering cold for wood and payment for days' work. Mrs. B fulfilled her duties and the hour of free time. She's asked by the cock or chicken, damn, I want to fry it and I want to eat it. And the chicken asks Miss B what she would like from the storehouse. 3 rations and a log, says Miss B. Miss B is told that she is a button short, and because of that, she has to settle for a twig. Ain't no credit around here. I suppose it is what it is. Now we get to see where the animals bring the logs to which is the general collection area. They group together for additional body heat to stay warm. That's a great way to show how cold it is to these animals, and you just get the feeling of dread and defeat. Caesar, the rabbit, is asked, or rather told, to leave because he hasn't brought any logs to contribute to the heat. Despite him telling the turkey that the kids are asleep, Mrs. B's kids that is, it doesn't matter. It's survival and everyone's got to earn their warmth, so to speak. Mrs. B throws in her twig as contribution to the fire, but that obviously won't be enough. Argument erupts, and afterwards they realize they can go back home and take care of the other business. You know, slave by day and fight for freedom by night. From the previous issue, the animals hit the bucket with Silvio's head painted on it, mocking Silvio and keeping their spirits up. Number 1 comes in and doesn't appreciate the other animals mocking the president, and laughing is not allowed. Laughing's not allowed, says Miss B. Number 1 puts her under arrest for 2 nights in the cell. The other animals come to her defense and tell number 1 that they all hit the bucket and laugh, so you got to put all of us under arrest. This is where Mrs. B shines right here. She tells number 1, what will you tell our beloved president when he learns that a significant number of his best workers are missing and wood collecting along with other work on the tower will be late, all because of a little bitty bucket? Well, damn, if you put it that way, he is put in between a rock and a hard bucket. I know that ain't the same, but you get my drift. So number 1 is left with no choice but to arrest the bucket and put the bucket in jail. You go, bucket! This is kind of funny. The president awakes from his rest, and number 1 tells Silvio that the animals mocked him last night. When asked what did he do about it, he responds with, well, I arrested the bucket, sir. That's funny. And Silvio is informed of another act of defiance. Daisy, callback to issue number 1, is drawn in the snow. A Daisy, not the geese Daisy. Silvio's ego and pride is not having none of this bull jive, and he wants action to be taken. Under pressure, number 1 says he'll arrest all the animals and send them to the stake. We know as the reader that's not a very good idea. You can't kill off all the help, especially with the barter exchange going on too. The number 2 dog proposes something else. He proposes that the animals need to be watched more closely and they all need to wear collars with bells on them. Definitely invasive, and Silvio likes it, if not loves that idea. The next day, the Republics try to pass all these collars with bells onto them as a gift from the Republic as a testament of devotion. And if you're caught not wearing it, you will be executed on the spot. Mrs. B refuses, and number 1 tells her to lower her gaze or he'll have kitten dinner tonight. Well, damn, if you put it that way. The animals from the previous issue who seem to be on the fences about the revolution is obviously livid about wearing bells and blames Miss B for it. He comes off, he's not on the side of the revolution, but perhaps maybe on the side of President Silvio. But they want to escape the grasp and the tyranny of Silvio and tell Mrs. B that they're in and where should they meet because they want in on this revolution. They want to end the tyranny. Mrs. B goes to Azelard and shares the great news that more animals are joining the cause, but at the same time, hitting buckets and enjoying daisies at night is not going to work anymore because of these damn bells that they gotta wear. Caesar thinks he won the bet with Azelard. You can check out the previous issue from the story on that. But Azelard has a plan for the collars with bells. He tells them they're going to have to fight in the open and not in hiding anymore. Bring injustice in the open, other animals are going to have to join. The question is, how do you unite the animals with collars and bells mandated to be worn at all times? The cause Azelard proposes that will unite the animals is Silvio and gang kick rocks and they empty the storehouse and divide everything equally, wood and all. They know they can't win violence with this, and everyone needs to be on the same page. All animals is on the cause have to resist anger, hate, and the burning desire for vengeance. If crime or violence bring animals together, then they risk the worst. I like where this is going. So when Miss B calls a meeting with the animals in the shed and she reveals the plan about bringing down Silvio peacefully, well, let's just say the animals are like, hell no, we want blood, claws, and jaws being used to get our freedom. We done with this stuff. We know Mrs. B will die for the cause, but she won't kill for it. Excellent choice of words on her part. There's a lot of exposition here why the animals feel they won't win the hearts of Silvio and his militia with peaceful protests to show injustice. And you know what? They are right. At the same time, these little ass animals fighting against the bull and his bullshit straight up is not gonna happen, and they'll die and end up like Daisy. Caesar makes sure to remind the animals of that. At the end of the debate, the animals realize that Mrs. B is right. And what is the plan, they ask. She tells them all to go back to business as usual, but we're not buying any more logs, no branch or twigs, and we will insist on free food, free wood for everyone. Phase 1 of free wood and the revolution's on the way. The next day, the animals line up in the cold waiting to purchase wood. When Mrs. B is asked what she will take today, she says the big log for the goose Bremen, 3 small logs for the ducklings, and 4 branches for Gildo. I almost wanted to say Guido, but the chicken whispers to her that she doesn't have enough to pay for all this. And Miss B's like, oh no, I don't plan to pay for all that, says Miss B. She asks if the wood will be distributed justly according to the animals' need. Since we bust our tails to get wood in the cold, it's not fair and just that we have to pay for it too. They have a good laugh at their expense and things are about to get started. As part of their peaceful protest, number 1, number 2 wonder why they are standing in the freezing cold outside of Silvio's domain for 2 hours. The dogs can't arrest him, and for what grounds? Silvio pays them no attention, but they are to continue to stand in the cold until they get justice they deserve. Kill them with kindness, I suppose, or empathy in that matter. Meanwhile, while inside the castle, Silvio laughs at the idea of the citizens wanting free food. He asks what further plans is number 1 going to do about their insolence. He's like, nothing. I mean, what can I do? They work the fields, they contribute to the storehouse, and they do their free time off duty. Number 2 sees beneath the surface and knows the log issue is just a pretext. First, it's the drawing of the daisies on the leaves, the bucket, and now the refusal to purchase wood. Something more insidious is going on behind all of our backs. And remember, they can't tie them to the state because enough animals have been lost, and they need these animals to stock the storehouse, and they need to meet the requirements for the next barter exchange. Bella, Silvio's concubine, suggests that the animals can do themselves in and let them freeze. Now, tend to my knees, Silvio, and do me in. And Silvio's like, okay, say less, and he kicks the animals out. Turns out Bella was right about one thing. In the weeks that followed, everyone was soaked to the bone. Skin froze until it was hard as wood. And under their paws, the biting cold turned the snow into carpet of needles. Exhausted, hungry since the daily rations were diminished, the animals held out. But Silvio's determination to ignore their suffering seemed more unshakable than theirs to stand up to him. Their bones were weak, heavy. Silvio continues to ignore them. Some broke down, but no one gave in. Miss B started to realize that if they did not find a way to warm up, everything would fall apart. And just when doubt started to settle in, it wasn't a log that warned them. They go into a party that's hosted by none other than Caesar. And he is mocking what they're doing, but in a sarcastic and funny way. And it's a party. They're dancing. Mrs. B's kids are doing. And the animals are like, okay, I like this levity situation. They dance. They're making a party. Miss B is like, what are you doing? And Caesar's like, look, if you want to make it through this, we all need to take time to have some fun. Just because we're fighting doesn't mean we need to be sad. We have to have fun with this too, but at the same time, we are fighting for this cause. Outside in the blister cold, number 2 sees the party going on. And when he reports back to President Silvio, he's like, they're dancing and singing? They're assaulting me by refusing my wood? Now they're dancing? Hands and geeses and all. And number 1's like, may I tie a few of them to the stake, Mr. President? Can I? Huh? May I? I mean, he's really weak and defeated at this point. And number 2's like, no, we're not doing that. And Sylvia's like, well, what do you suggest? And number 2 is like, we continue to ignore them. The buttons don't do anything for the barter exchange. And as long as these animals keep working and amassing enough for the central storehouse, why should we react? If we react now, it sends a message that they can get to us. And Silvio's not having it. He wants action taken. Do I need to take out one of your eyes for you to see more clearly? They're mocking me. I'm not just going to sit back with my hoofs crossed waiting for them to freeze. They're holding out because they're not suffering enough. That's all. Number one just casually says that while he's chewing on something, and Sylvie's like, okay, explain yourself. It's simple. They're holding out because they have shelter. The enemy of the animal is not the cold. They are affected by it, but they have their fur, wool, feathers. But there's no dry place for them to kick it, nothing to protect them against the rain, snow, and wind. Well then, and Sylvia's like, you are not number one for nothing. I am listening. So what do? They literally put the roof on fire to their shelter, and everyone is just in disarray. And the dog's like, well, we want to make sure you were comfortable, so we brought you some fire for warmth. And we don't know what happened. A spark, a clumsy gesture. We're just being sarcastic here. I mean, it is what it is. Enjoy your heat. Guess what? Unless you pay, you aren't allowed to warm yourselves with it, and the price of wood just double. So stop complaining. It's not a tragedy. It's not like there isn't a place for you to go and stay. There's the forge, but you have to have a log. And guess what? Because of winter, the price of wood is double. And before they can attack, and these animals are at their wits' end to attack, because I mean, this is personal right here. It got personal. Mrs. B is like, no, we won't be going to the forge, number one, as long as the wood isn't free. But don't be afraid. Afraid? Who, me, says number one? Yes, you, number one. We're only here to try to get what's fair, not to hurt and kill. Number one sees this as a challenge, like, okay, we'll see about that. And that's where we end this issue with Animal Castle issue number 4. By far, there's a lot of exposition with this book, but I am in. I am definitely in. I believe issue number 5 is the last and final issue, which I will be reviewing and doing a full story compilation of this. There's so much richness, so much fun with this book, and so much brutality and savageness to it. And not in a gory way, but just, damn, they're getting low and petty with this. And the price of freedom is high, but man, is it worth it to them. And I'm looking forward to see how this issue ends. We begin this issue in the early morning. All the animals along with Miss B wake up in the aftermath of their home being burned by the militia. The long nights. I mean, many long nights of standing in the snow to make a point to President Silvio has caught up to them. Not to mention sleeping in many long nights and many nights without shelter in the blistering cold. One of the animals' hooves is frozen. From sleeping without a roof in the cold, of course. They have to stand her up to get her blood circulating again. The animals get her up and help her to walk to circulate her blood. The question comes up, how much longer do they have to sleep in the freezing cold and stand the freezing cold to make their protest demanding free wood? Without shelter, they're not going to want to protest. Obviously, right? To stay warm, at the very least, one of the animals proposes they collect dead wood and make a fire in the old bread oven. It'll help those regain their strength, and the dog militia won't know any different. Everyone is on board with that, especially since everyone's allowed to use dead wood. Ms. B points out a flaw in that plan, saying that it'll be renouncing their oath. They are forbidding and collecting dead wood other than to bring it to the storehouse only. She reminds them that they are supposed to fight injustice, not break any laws. You already know they balked back at that, saying that the laws are unfair, and Silvio and the militia are just going to wait for the opportunity to treat them like criminals, outlaws, and to punish them. After some back and forth, Miss B is put in a very tough position where her character is tested. She compromises or caves in and tells the animals that it's okay to collect some deadwood, but just for a week. Caesar looks at her like this could be a costly mistake. Later on, she goes to collect deadwood. The dog follows her and calls her out on her selfish crime against all the animals in the castle. She responds with that she was going to bring the deadwood back to the storehouse. Of course, that's why you walked away from the Celeric fields without letting anyone know, says the dog. Number 1 tells number 2 to bite her. Initially, number 2 doesn't want to, but number 1 tells him that it's an order. Bite her. He bites her, and Miss B hears her scream from the distance. Number 2 bites Bernadette in the leg, and number 1 calls him incompetent because he instructed him to bite her in the throat. He didn't, but you know how that goes. Miss B is in the trees where the dogs can't get to her. She tells dog number 1 if you kill them, she'll tell the whole castle that you killed a defenseless animal, and we shall see if you have enough influence to be obeyed. In other words, animals will revolt. The dogs leave and save this battle for another day, and they want to gut Miss B. Miss B walks with the wounded animal to the river where the dogs won't see them. The challenge is she's too heavy for Miss B as she collapses in the blistering cold due to her open wound from the bite. Miss B tells her to get up. She doesn't get up. Her name is Bernadette. Miss B gets woken up by Caesar and company as they were searching for her all night. Bernadette's man, asks for the whereabouts and where he discovers her lifeless body in the snow. Before he gets a chance to mourn her death, number 2 tells the animals to back away from her because they need to take the body before it attracts any wolves. Notice how it seems like he was gonna say meat before changing the sentence. And throughout this issue, do we ever see any wolves? Miss B tells him what's the rush. We can take her to the cemetery later so we can give Mr. Gorn some time to mourn. Rush, says number 1. You guys should have thought about that before sending her to steal dead wood, before having her freeze at night away from the fire in the forge, before pushing her to provoke our good President Silvio. No self-respecting man will ever do that, ever. He's really just adding salt to the wound with those remarks. They pretty much get on the buck in time to put Bernadine away and take her away. And you see Mr. Gorn just like in misery and pain and just in agony as they whisk his lady away. So number 2 is like, what if we leave her behind? It'll be a good opportunity for them to calm things down. Number 1's like, shut up, we're only enforcing the law. All dead animals have the right to be buried in the castle cemetery immediately. And I'm hungry. Perhaps they really want to use Bernadette for the barter exchange. So Mr. Gorn, he lost his beloved. He goes to commit suicide and Mrs. B stops him. Stop! She fought so we could live. She fought so you could live. And me too, as he's at the edge of the cliff, but he stops. Some time goes on, Mr. Gorn is working and he just gets pissed in his misery and his mourn. He didn't have proper time to mourn and he breaks away from his work. What's up with him, says Caesar. I don't know, but we better go find out and see what he's up to. He walks to the castle and number 1's like, what the hell are you doing here? It's not time to stop working. And all the animals are like, look, we want to accompany him. This is our boy, we're gonna accompany him, right? Stop your nonsense, says number 1. Go back to the fields and the construction site. I don't want to hear a single one of you miss their free time. Okay, says Caesar. There's over 50 of us and 3 of you. What are you gonna do about it? Huh? You gonna tempt me? How would you feel if we took away your rations for a week? How about that? Only a week, says Caesar. And then all the animals gather around Silvio's castle. And Caesar's like, a week without rations? Number 1 is actually a good dog. I would have fasted for a year just to see that. Silvio finally acknowledges it as he peeks his head out the window, sees all the animals in protest staring at him. And you can see the smile on their faces as he acknowledges them. Sylvia's like, they're here, all of them. Is this what you call controlling the situation, number 1? Oh, they've been fined a week of rations, Mr. President. They'll be less rebellious on an empty stomach. A week, says Silvio. And he gets sarcastic here. Brilliant idea, number 1. But after 2 or 3 days when they're exhausted and they're frozen, how are they going to work? Well, I admit I didn't really think about that. We'll have to make a choice. We have to make a choice? Not just a choice, says Silvio. Either I give in and look ridiculous, or I don't fill the storehouse, and I guess you're ready to starve with me. And Bella, or his concubine, is like, well, why don't you negotiate with them? Offer to sell the wood at half price because you're generous and you want to avoid other deaths of your beloved citizens. You'll retain control, you'll get more buttons that way, and you'll get more wood and everyone will be warm. Which, you know what, you want to keep me warm, right, baby? And you still are in control and it makes you look good. Sylvie's like, number 2, do you know who their leader is? They don't have a leader, boss, but I think I know who's turning them against us. It's that cat. I just don't understand how she could have changed so much and come up with these ideas, but I'll get rid of her. No, says Sylvia. Tell her I want to negotiate. President Silvio's like, bring them my offer and tell them I'll wait for the response. Tomorrow night from their leader and only their leader. I'm not entering into their game, number 2. Bring that offer to their leader. So as Mrs. B brings old radishes to Azelard to keep him fed because there's no more rations, there's no more food. Number 2 discovers Mrs. B without her collar. See issue number 4, she's not wearing her collar, and he's like, you know what? That is punishment by death. Luckily, I'm here on a courtesy call to tell you that the President Silvio is ready to consent to selling the wood at half price if and only if the animals agree to purchase the wood and work with gusto. The President will send you his cart tomorrow morning at nightfall so you can bring your response to him in person. And Mrs. B is like, but why are you telling me this? Don't mock me, Miss B. You're their leader. If it were up to me, you already be dead and tied to the stake. If your little movement doesn't stop right away, it won't be just the militia and Silvio that'll pay the price, but every last animal in the castle. So in this panel, we see number 2 going to Bernadette's grave as he feels some kind of remorse for what he's done. So we get a little alternate side of him. He goes home to his family. We see his wife and kids, and his kids are like, Daddy, did you arrest all the bad animals today, huh? Did you save the castle? And that look in his face just says it all. He tells them yes, but what he really means is, he doesn't know. It's just confused and just a somber look. Azelard thanks Miss B for all the radishes. And Miss B's like, but you know, the radishes are rotten. And Azelard is like, it's okay, it's totally fine. So my suffering is less than those that are suffering right now in this fight. Miss B tells Azelard the animals are united. Because of us being united, President Silvio came to negotiate and he agreed to drop the wood to half price. It's incredible, isn't it? Silvio's making it just for us. Do you think we should accept? Azelard's like, well, it's not up to me, it's up to you. You're their leader. And she's like, but surely you have an opinion, Azelard. Of course he does. He doesn't see any reason to accept anything that's half fair unless, and Miss B's like, oh, because of our own weakness. So it's pretty much free wood or nothing at all. In the next panel right here, we see the animals meet and they have a discussion of if they should accept that offer. They go back and forth and they say, but Silvio, I mean, he is protecting us against the wolves, right? Everyone else is having their own opinions. The bell collars are horrible, but it is half price for the wood and we don't have to stand in the blistering cold for any longer, right? So they go to Mr. Gorin, like, what do you think? And Mr. Gorin's like, don't put me on the spot like that. Well, it's up to you to decide, Miss B. And Miss B's like, okay, well, it's not up to me to decide, but it's up to all of us. So we're all gonna put a pause up and put a vote. So who wants to take Silvio's offer? And we end that panel right there. We go into the next morning, the next nightfall, the cart arrives. Hear ye, and the pig come to pick up Miss B and take her to President Silvio. They give her some rules to follow. So when you meet with President Silvio, you are never to come closer than 6 feet to him. Only speak when spoken to, stay seated on the back legs during the meeting, and do not get up until he ends the meeting. And of course, you leave walking backwards. Never turn your back on him. Never, huh? Says Miss B. And that smirk right there is like that emoji smirk that we all send in a text message. You guys know what I'm talking about. So at the castle, President Silvio makes a compelling grand speech. My heart bleeds when my fellow animals suffer, so I've decided to be magnanimous and cut the price of wood in half. And in exchange, all the animals will work extra hard, all of them as a reward for my generosity. No need to thank me or flatter me. I'm doing this for the good of the castle. And Miss B is like, well, there will be no point in doing that because all the animals have refused your offer. Even half the buttons per log is too high for us. The wood should be free for everyone. I don't want to cause any more embarrassment to you or put you in another embarrassing situation, President Silvio, as she approaches him and she breaks the rules that the pigs pretty much explained to her previously. It's not fair to make the animals pay for free work for stocking up the wood for the storehouse. It needs to be free. I have to go, Mr. President. I have to work on the scaffolding, and as you know, we all have our part to play in the work for the castle. I wouldn't want to break any laws. Number one's like, how dare she? You know, this is let me have at her. President Silvio was like, yo, man, calm down. And he addresses Mrs. B. And for you, my dear, you had better start thinking about your position. If you continue to refuse my wood, you won't make it through the winter. And Miss B's like, if we continue, no one will make it through winter. The animals of the lower courtyard are ready for that. Are you? And that is the true test that President Silvio, that's just pretty much taking away his power and authority right there. Now we get this panel of this donkey just collapsing in the snow, and number one is like, we got to get him on his feet and get him taken care of. The donkey is the only animal strong enough to pull the cart full of logs, and he could no longer fulfill its duties. It became impossible to get wood to the castle. Even with the strongest will in the world, without warmth, most of the animals came down with fevers and were exhausted. So little by little, the saws, the rakes, and others work sounds went silent. The radishes and chard stayed in the ground, and the logs in the tree, and the misery of some became the misery of others. All of them. So Miss B stands out in the blistering cold, just in confusion, and her faith is being tested. What are you doing? Says Caesar. I'm the last holdout. And Caesar's like, well, your kittens have slept all day. But yeah, this is really tough on him. This is really tough. Miss B's like, oh my God, please don't tell me that. It's a question of hours, a day or two. Even the dogs will make it. Silvio has to give in. And then Caesar's like, look, your children are not going to make it, Miss B. Even Silvio won't let this happen to their children. Is this really worth it? Your kittens need logs to stay warm or else they won't hold up any longer with this cold. And Miss B is like, okay, I can pay with these 2 buttons, but if I go buy some wood, that means, yeah, this holdout is over. Forget Silvio's negotiating of half off the wood. No, you're paying full price, if not more, and Silvio's gonna inflict more damage and pain if we do this. but Miss B has to protect her kids. That is a tough call that she has to go through. Meanwhile, in the castle, Silvio's concubine is like, me wearing rags with all the effort I made to be fashionable? How dare you? The militia doesn't have any wood. Several dogs, and especially their puppies, have the winter illness. We could all be sick. And without a militia, it'll be hard to secure the castle. We have no champagne. Just give them their free wood. Silvia's like, you are such a fool. If I give them what they want, it's the beginning of the end. I thought I was going to be able to placate their leader with the negotiation, but she's a fanatic. And if I give it now, it isn't so much that they've won or paying for wood, but that they beat me. And then what will they ask for next? It's only the beginning of the end. Then number 2 is like, okay, let me show you off my smarts here. There may be a way of giving them what they want without losing face, Silvio. You are the one who sets the rules here, right? You and you alone. So show them that you are the one who will permit them to have their wood for free and not their movement. The animals want what they call justice, and they will praise you if you give it to them. So who do they want? They want number 1's head. The dog who maimed theirs on the field, who ordered the death of their females, who put the collars on them. You terminate him, it'll make you look good, and you still remain in power. And you're the only one who can do that. And Silvio smiles because, yeah, he's right. I'm the only one that can do that. What's up, bro? So as Miss B is about to approach the chicken or the cock to buy some twigs with her buttons, right at that nick of time, right at the brink of darkness, a ray of sunshine came in, if you will. President Silvio comes in and makes a speech. But before he can make his speech, number 1 tells Miss B, you better go get your animals. Whether they're sick, dying, or dead, or alive, go get him here now. President Silvio has a speech to make. So as President Silvio makes his speech, dear brothers and sisters animals, it is great humility that I say that I do not only consider myself your president and guide, but also your father. When you stand before me in the cold like a father, I respect your determination, but I must ignore your capriciousness for the sake of the castle. But like a father, I owe you justice. All the animals are listening. And as the guarantor of the castle justice, I order that as compensation for the crimes and errors committed, wood will now be free. And the animals are like, yes, oh my God, praise him, yes, yes. But I also order that justice is done, and number 1 is to be tied to the stake for damage to the common good, brutality, and crimes against the people. Number 1's like, what? Bruh, I was doing what you wanted me to do. I was following orders. Silence, traitor! And he maims him with his horns and kills him. And you see the red in the animals like something's about to overtake him. Some kind of vengeful darkness is all they see is red is going to overtake him. He's all yours, says President Silvio. Do with him what you please. And the animals are like, okay, I think we might. Miss B's like, no, don't do that. It's what they want. Leave him. Don't touch him. And Gore's like, don't touch. Get off of me. Get out of my way. And you see all the darkness and the animals turn dark as Miss B says no. And she's the only one with their vision still intact. She doesn't want to go about it this way. And the animals eat and destroy number 1. And it turns out Bella was right. The idea of being able to get free wood re-energized the animals so they got their backs and their paws back to work. Little by little, the castle chimney started to smoke again, but victory is further away than ever. And that's where we end this issue. I don't know where to start. I mean, if this isn't conclusion of this series, I might or may not be completely satisfied. Perhaps I was expecting a happy ending, and we didn't get a happy ending. But at the end of this, it feels like is this the true nature of things in the world today? I mean, I could see this in any scenario possible. It's manipulation at its best. Really good conclusion. It's just not what I was expecting, but you know what? It's just a really solid story. Actually, I think it's an amazing story the more I think about it. Perhaps I do hope they keep the story going in a new run of books. I mean, maybe not. I mean, I can relate to this where Miss B was standing about to buy some log, and if she did do that, it would just throw away the rebelling and everything behind it for a reason, because I was going through that when I was going through a litigious situation with the relative of mine. And at the end, I was losing every battle I was losing, but I did win the war at the end. I know that's not anything to do with comic books, but this relates to me with that story. And also, yeah, it's just funny how right at the end where you think all hope is lost, a light does come through. But if you're not careful, this plot twist can happen. It's victory, but is it really victory? From my point of view, this story is definitely worth it to young adults and adults likewise. But with that being said, what you guys think of Animal Castle issue number 5, or if not the entire series if you follow this channel? Comment below, let me know. Also, link in description if you wish to add this comic book to your comic book collection. If you like the content we're throwing up, You know what to do. Don't be shy and don't be stingy. Here at Rated Comics, we do awesome comic book reviews, comic book related content with the occasional comic book giveaway. Thanks again for watching. Until next time.